down to Biscayne.
Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing rubber frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the flow playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Welcome into the latest episode of 5 on the Floor, post-game edition of 5 on the Floor. I'm your host, Greg Sylvander. Tonight's floor plan with me, Alex Toledo. You can follow him on X, Twitter, at Tropical Blanket. We also have Brady Hawk. You can follow him at Brady Hawk 305. The floor plan, we are going to dissect the Miami Heat's 2-point loss up in New York in Madison Square Garden against the New York Knicks. This was a game that they had full control of, and they let it slip away. Common theme. So we're going to get into that. We're going to dive into all of the different things we saw from Heat players, as well as some funny things that we saw and some matchups here and there. So there's lots to unpack. We'll get to it all. But before we go into any of that, we're going to first hit you with the Gamer of the Night.
And now on 5 on the Floor, it's time for the Gamer of the Night, sponsored by Rock Esports Center, the place to eat, drink, and play all day. Host your next birthday party with them. Located at 15305 South Dixie Highway in Palmetto Bay. They've got a 5,500 square foot state-of-the-art center equipped with all the high-end power. Play all-day passes available for just $25, but if you mention 5 Reasons, it's just $20. So mention 5 Reasons or 5 RSN. You get to play all day for $20. And now, the Gamer of the Night.
So yeah, I don't want to do this, especially on a night for our viewers on the YouTube channel where I'm debuting the Guts hat. Shout out to the Miami Heat store for making merch that so beautifully is intertwined with my soul. The Gamer of the Night is Jalen Brunson. And this guy was in his bag. He's usually in his bag. He's a player I like around the league. I think the Dallas Mavericks completely fumbled the Luka Doncic era when they let Jalen Brunson leave. And I'll maintain that was the moment that I think Luka will now eventually end up elsewhere. That's a hot take for another day. Jalen Brunson had 24 points, 10 of 16 from the field, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, but we don't care about the counting stats. He had Jaime Jaquez isolated on him, and he went to work. And late in that game, the New York Knicks went on a 29-11 run in the fourth quarter. That was the score, 29-11. I'll say that again. And it was ugly. And Jalen Brunson went crazy. And we were laughing about it on playback because it was just funny because Jaime Jaquez was not backing down. Brady Hawk, there's a part of me that feels good that Jaime keeps getting put in these spots to guard the best players on the best teams. Tonight was a tough one to watch because Jalen was just playing so well. I'm not going to ask you about what happened in the fourth quarter because I know that you're tired of me asking that question on this post-game show now. I'll let Alex try to figure that one out. Specifically Jalen Brunson, why the hell could they not contain him tonight? I don't think it's Jaime Jaquez's fault. But what did you see? What were your thoughts on how they defended him?
So, yeah, I think number one, it was a lot of single coverage. So it's a lot of one-on-one stuff, which is really tough with Jalen Brunson because he's so shifty. Like they faced so many good players going back to last year's playoffs. And the one that Spo kept talking about and going back to, it felt like over and over, was Jalen Brunson. Like he was one of those guys that he really struggled to find counters to, just because he does it in a Jimmy type way, as we were talking about on playback as well, because he just does it in terms of just finding angles, moving Jaime around late in that game, where I've talked about a lot. Jaime has done a really good job just containing a lot of these top players. He's done a good job of kind of just staying down on shot fakes and moves. He was all over the place with Brunson, and that's just credit to him for making those moves. It's also, Jaime is not, as much as we give him credit for his defensive ability so far, he's not built to be guarding point guards. Like, he's not built to be out there to guard quick guys like Jalen Brunson. That's not his perfect build to defend. Haywood, on the other hand, totally different case. Like, that's why I think in that case, you would want Haywood out there to kind of guard a Brunson. Obviously, Haywood is another game where Haywood didn't really have a flow offensively. They go with Jaime late in the game. he ends up on the switch, and there's kind of where you have it. So we're going to talk a lot about the offense. We're going to talk a lot about what happened in the fourth quarter, as you mentioned, Greg. But I think the thing about Brunson is more so of what keeps happening in this trend in the fourth quarters with Miami defensively over and over and over. Like, we're going to keep talking about what keeps happening with this offense, but like they let this happen defensively over and over in the fourth quarters. And we did a fourth quarter episode. We talked about the fact that this was number 2 defense in fourth quarters last year in the NBA. Now they're in the bottom of the league. Like, they just fall off a cliff. And it's not like they're putting out bad defensive lineups. It's not like they're putting out a ton of bad defensive players. Is it effort? Is it scheme? Like, I don't know. Like, I think that's the questions that they have to start asking themselves, because that's the point that you're kind of getting to, is like, it gets to a point of coasting. Like, these are 2 games that were in the bag for you, that you're up 20 points, and you kind of it just drops into their lap.
Yeah.
Like, it just falls right into their play style. So it's happened a couple times. Part of it, I'll say, is we talk a lot about their ability in transition defensively. And a lot of the offense is bleeding into the defense of the fourth quarter, where we were talking about either if they started speeding things up and it's turnovers going the other direction, it's a quickly 3 in transition, or they start slowing things down and all of a sudden it's just flattened out and then they get in a flow on the other end. So it's like they have to figure out what speed they want to play at. Because I felt like so many times in the fourth quarter, they either played too fast or too slow, where they just didn't know what they were trying to do. It depends on the lineup, I guess, but it's something they really have to figure out, because this fourth quarter thing is a legit problem.
It really is. And then when you look and see that Miami only committed 11 turnovers, so then, like, to compound all this, they're taking care of the basketball. They come out in the third quarter with a modest lead, but they had you felt like they had the game under control. They come out in the second half. They really blitzed New York. 37-20 was what the scoring was in the third quarter, Alex. So that was like a huge push for Miami. They went into the fourth quarter in complete control. 29-11 comes. Common threads for you are what? I know that this is probably its own episode, so like I don't necessarily need you to unpack it from every angle, but if you had to say, what is the top couple things that you're seeing reoccurring over and over again in the fourth quarter meltdowns, what would you hone in on, or what comes top of mind right now?
Honestly, I don't know if there is just one thing. I feel like, and this is this part of it's kind of a cop-out answer, when you talk about the complacency. It feels like that's a part of it, right? It's not everything, but there's a certain level of complacency where it's not that they're not trying. It's just maybe they're not quite as focused as in other parts of the game. They had such a great third quarter, like you said, outscoring them by 17 in the third, and then to get, to the Knicks just outscore you by 18 in the fourth quarter. It's unfortunate, man. I don't think complacency is all of it. I think the one of the reoccurring themes in these fourth quarters, specifically once Jimmy is back in the game, is his offense. I feel like it's been very all over the place. It's been kind of a roller coaster. Like, I had some belief, right, when he took that shot at the end of the game. It wasn't a bad look, but just in general, I feel like he hasn't been getting to his spots, hasn't been quite as impactful or efficient in the crunch time offense as he's been in the past for the Heat. And I think that kind of trickles down a little bit, because he's the guy who is supposed to calm you down in these fourth quarters. Like, their whole thing is, you hang around, and even if the team comes back, you have a closer, and your other closer is not playing in Tyler Hero. I think they were doubling a lot on Bam today, and I think that affected his game too. He seemed a little bit like he still had a good game. I think Bam did a good job reacting to the doubles for the most part in the way that they were defending him. But I think when it comes to him finding his own offense by the end of the game, it was a little hard for him. And there was that one rushed like mid-range attempt when he finally found, like, when he had like a second of open space. So, like, I think some of it tonight was a reaction to the Knicks defense. I think Jimmy's got to be better in the fourth quarter. And I think tonight, I thought it was going to be a rougher game offensively than even what it was. They ended up finishing with like a bad offensive rating. They started off pretty good, but when you're missing Duncan Robinson, you're missing Tyler Hero, you're playing against a Knicks defense that has been very good. We knew that they were going to double the Heat's best players, and I think them doubling Bam was kind of the X factor, because we've seen them double Jimmy so much. But now with the other guys out, it just made a lot of sense for Thibodeau to double Bam, and so I think as a result of that, it got a little murky for those guys, and you just don't have other knockdown shooters out there. and it just kind of got ugly from there. Like you maybe hope that Kyle could have another like huge shooting game. That wasn't the case. Jaquez had a good game. He had a rough start at the beginning and wasn't able to do it towards the end. You probably could have hoped for some clutch buckets from him there, but no, I just think they've got to settle down a little bit. They've got to, like Brady said, I completely agree with Brady about figuring out what speed they want to play at. There was times in the fourth quarter early on where they were kind of just pushing the pace, and the Knicks would get right back out in transition and get easy transition buckets, and that's how it piled up because the Knicks are not like a great half-court scoring team. In fact, they're like the worst finishing team in the league at the rim by a good amount. So like they were just getting a lot of their stuff in transition, and I think that's what the Heat wanted to do. And like you said, Leif, they won the turnover battle as far as total turnovers, but they just weren't able to make it in transition as much as they needed to. And I think in the fourth quarter, the Knicks were basically playing the Heat's game, like making up for the easy buckets by getting easy ones in transition and just playing solid defense. I think the Heat got to be defense first and just settle down on offense and take good shots. Like that's what they do. They're a low turnover, take good shots type of team in the fourth quarter. So just stick to your identity.
Something I noticed about tonight's game also that I think is worth pointing out, and I know that there's guys in and out, and RJ Hampton is currently not available, and Jovic is on assignment in Sioux Falls. Orlando Robinson was just assigned as well. And obviously Duncan, Drew Smith, there's all these kinds of different things with the roster, but it felt like Spo couldn't go very deep here. Like if I'm looking over this now, Kevin Love had 18 minutes, Caleb Martin had 17 minutes. That's concerning. And Cole Swider had a 6-minute stint was as forgettable as can be. I find it interesting that that Spoelstra doesn't have 8 guys that could eclipse 20 minutes in a game like this. That's just an interesting observation from me. Just because I would have hoped that Caleb maybe would be able to take on some more of those minutes by now, but it doesn't appear as if he's quite there yet. Hopefully it'll be soon. Let's hit you with the play of the night next. We hate to be all of our segments to be about New York Knicks, but they did some sick stuff tonight. But let's check out our aggressive play of the night.
And now it's time for the Insurance by Lynette Play of the Night, sponsored by insurancebylynette.com, an A-aggressive insurance agency. You can reach out to our friend Lynette at 954-581-8800. That's 954-581-8800, or insurancebylynette.com. That's insurancebylynette.com with 2 N's and 2 T's. Your best play for auto insurance, homeowners insurance, condo insurance, life insurance, or a retirement program. Reach out to Lynette at insurancebylynette.com.
So there's a bunch of these I could go with, but I'm going to hone in on this one particular play. And it was bear with me as I scroll here to get to it. It was with 5:53 to go in the game. Jalen Brunson was feeling it. He made a step back jumper from the right wing. That was a key bucket in getting them even closer to Miami as they continued to make a comeback. They went back and forth. Jaime Jaquez made a 3-pointer as they came down the floor. It was some back and forth action, but ultimately ended in Jalen Brunson getting the best of him with another bucket and the foul. It was a tough night, but that was the aggressive play of the night because Jalen Brunson was in his bag. Shout out to him. The Miami Heat did lose 100-98. All the other guys, and I mentioned some of them, and the fact that there isn't enough, I felt like to me, I wish they could have gotten a little bit more out of a guy like Caleb tonight. Alex, do you think that I am overreacting with Caleb Martin? Do you think that there's something to be worried about there? Haywood Highsmith, we haven't talked about yet. Interested your thoughts on his night. Caleb and Haywood Highsmith, Alex, how do you feel about those 2 wings?
So, excuse me, when it comes to Highsmith, I mean, like we talked about this on Playback. Of course, I'm going to promote it. If I have to bring it up, I'm going to promote it. Playback.tv/5RSN or download the app. No cable subscription needed to just hang out with us. Another great time tonight. It was fun watching that game with everybody. But yeah, like I think Highsmith, he's just got to keep taking the open threes. He's not a knockdown guy, but when those shots are there, he's got to take them. And so with 3-point shooting with somebody who wasn't a knockdown guy, like it can be up and down at times. And Haywood was just known as like a corner 3-point shooter up to this year. And now he just started adding some of the wing stuff. So I would be a little bit more patient with him. I think he's been so good on the defensive end that he deserves that patience. And just kind of, I think we got to wait it out a little bit to see how long this goes on for and see if it stabilizes. But with Caleb, I definitely have more concern just because the shot has looked flat. Like we've seen flashes here and there of, not it's going to sound bad, but like the old Caleb, as far as what you saw from him last season with the finishing, I don't think the closeout attacking has been there on the same level. I've just like occasionally you see the finishes here and there, but I just don't think the activity is on the same level for him. Offensively, he doesn't look as confident. I think the shot has looked consistently pretty flat. Not that his shot was like beautiful before, right? But he's been one of those guys who, like, ever since he's been here, he's had a pretty good 3-point percentage, right? And he's not considered a knockdown guy. So the shot being flat is not great. I still believe that he can figure it out, but it's going to be a concern when you have the looming free agency, you have the knee tendinosis, and just the fact that he hasn't looked all that great since he's been back. And after last season and the way that he performed in the playoffs, you'd think that it would be necessary for him to be playing well for them to get to where they want to go. So it's good that they have some other guys who have stepped up, but they're going to need Caleb to get back into form at some point or another. So it's a good thing it's a long season. And yeah, as far as Jalen Brunson, man, that guy is filthy. Like it was, I was there just on playback reacting like a shocked fan at some of these shots that he was making, man. Like and Brady brought this up that Jaquez is not, he's not exactly a guard defender. Jaquez has done such a great job on so many stars. So when somebody mixes him up the way Brunson was, it just really stands out how good that guy is as a player. And again, another thing we talked about on playback is he has kind of an unorthodox game for an NBA point guard with the way that he can get like his back to the basket and he kind of plays at different paces, and he's really good at getting foul calls and kind of gaming that part of it. So the guy is really damn good. And I think Jaquez had a couple of plays between the spin into the layup earlier in the game and then the pass that he had to Bam, which was just a ridiculous pass in the paint. That they could have been the plays of the game. And then Brunson went on an insane run and really just mixed up Jaquez a couple of times there, and it was just awe-inspiring. Like the Heat have just faced him so many times now, and so many of them with actual stakes in the playoffs. Like you think they know all of his moves and all that. It's just the guy is really hard to guard. One of those plays was like he bumped Jimmy out of the way and then finished over Bam. Like the guy, it's not like it's only on some of their weaker defenders or anything like that. He's just really, really good. So shout out to him. Of course, screw the Knicks, but you got to give Brunson credit where it's due.
Yes, very much so. Screw the Knicks. I still will tell you in a 7-game series, this team does not worry me. It's more about that I just wish the Heat would capitalize on these games. Brady, before we go to the injury report, just your final thoughts. Can only be just 30 seconds or less on fourth quarter execution. Like if you could hone into one thing that you think when they face Brooklyn tomorrow night, because again we're on the first of a second night or the first of a back-to-back. Fourth quarter execution, one thing they could do differently that would really impact tomorrow night is what?
I just think if they have a lead, and this is what I said earlier, they just can't. They play this style where they just start taking a knee and punting, where they just kind of give up and go conservative instead of playing what got them the lead. You got the lead because you were playing faster and playing off turnovers and getting to the basket. You did not do it off shooting a bunch of threes because you did not have Tyler Hero, you did not have Duncan Robinson, you did not have a personnel rotation of a lineup that you're just going to get up a bunch of threes and shoot at a high percentage. That's not what you were going to do. It's not what you did, and that's not even how you were able to get that type of lead. You did in these other ways. You get to the fourth quarter and it gets thrown out the window. But the other thing I wanted to mention was looking at Bam's game today, where he has a decent game. He shoots 50% from the field. He scores over 20. He has a good game. But I think there's like these moments throughout the season where there's like a moment where maybe you reevaluate things that you're going to have to come back to as a coaching staff. And I think one of the things is they cannot give up on Bam just because he's doubled. Like, just because he starts getting doubled in the mid post and especially in this lineups without Jimmy to start the fourth, it's not like, okay, swing and let's just hope somebody else can just take somebody off a secondary attack or an isolation. You have to figure something out and put them in a position, start putting him on the roll a little more and see if they react and send a double on the roll. Let him play make from the top and run in an isolation. Do something differently and adjust, because I just feel like they didn't really shift anything from the fact once they started throwing those doubles at Bam. So that's something that I don't want to overreact to, but it is something that they're definitely 100% going to look at in the film and say, we need to figure this out if this happens again, because there's teams that are going to be looking not at this game specifically and saying, oh, this is how you stop Bam. But they're saying, well, if we start throwing Bam doubles at Bam in the third quarter in a random game, can that turn their offense off? And can they adjust from there? So I think they have to figure out counters from there, especially in these new lineups, because this is a totally new group that they're playing with, even though it's the same team. These are new lineup combinations around Bam that they have to figure out different things. So yeah, that's one thing that stood out to me. I'm not even gonna say it's not on Bam. I'm not even gonna say it's on anybody. But now the game's over. Look forward. You have to figure that out, because hey, if Brooklyn throws that to you tomorrow, you better be ready to figure something out.
It's very true. And I think that this is kind of the evolution of Bam becoming a more featured player and how that works itself out. Because you're right. They need him to kind of fight for position, maybe seal his man, and you throw it back to him again, whatever the hell it is. Like, it's got to be a situation where you're looking back to him and you don't just look off. This is a crazy stat that I'm going to end with before we go to the injury report. I mentioned earlier in the show that the Heat had 11 turnovers. The Knicks had 25 points off those 11 turnovers. You talk about maximizing 11 turnovers and turning it into offense. 25 points on 11 turnovers. That's insane. I can't remember the last time I saw so little turnovers and so many points coming off of them. Anyway, I digress. Let's go to the injury report.
And now it's time for the official 5 on the Floor injury report, sponsored by our friend Eric Rubenstein, the personal injury attorney. Born and raised in Lauderdale, Florida, lives in Miami, went to St. Thomas. He's a South Florida guy and a huge Miami Heat fan. But the important thing is he can help you get your money that you deserve when something happens to you. So reach out to our guy, Eric Rubenstein. Again, ericrubenstein.com, or ask about me, I got you, on Instagram. And now, the injury report.
Okay, the injury report. It was a jam-packed one, actually. Duncan Robinson did not play tonight. He was tagged as day-to-day. MRI shows that he will basically be okay. If I forgot exactly how it was worded, but he's day-to-day. I would not worry there. Cole Swider came back and got some action tonight because of that. What was the other one? Drew Smith, really unfortunate. Be out for the year. MRI confirmed a knee sprain that is bad enough to keep him out for the rest of the year. The court was definitely something that I know Eric Spoelstra had a point of contention with, and it'll be interesting to see what they do going forward with the lineup that they have, with the rotation there. Now, because he is injured, Drew Smith will count as his fully guaranteed contract of $1.8 million. He had a fully guaranteed date of January the 10th that that the Heat could have waived him and not been responsible for his entire salary. So now, because he is injured, he will be on the books, so they get that much closer to the second apron. And I know that we're trying to avoid that. Nikola Jovic is on G League assignment, as is Orlando Robinson. Tyler Hero continuing to rehab. Ethan has started to whisper that the game at home against Milwaukee may be a target date, so let's watch out for that. RJ Hampton continues to rehab as well. Jamal Cain and Thomas Bryant were DMP coaches' decisions. Jimmy Butler, the last of the ones here, did get his ankle sprained in this game, hobbled around, did not look right. I bet he doesn't play against Brooklyn. He may even sit longer than that, but I'm completely speculating. Alex, final thoughts on this game, the injury report. What do you think they're going to, how will they handle Jimmy before we close up shop here?
Yeah, the Jimmy thing, excuse me, is obviously really unfortunate, man. And like I said on playback, it was the sequel nobody asked for when it comes to Jimmy injuring his ankle at Madison Square Garden and playing hobbled. It's really just tough to not be reminded of that game at MSG in the last playoff. So yeah, it sucks. He really played through it. I mean, I thought it could have been worse. He did his best, but yeah, it was looking kind of rough there. I would be shocked if he played tomorrow. And like Brady was saying on playback, he's gonna have at least 3 days off if he doesn't play tomorrow. So that's good. I think it'll probably be a day-to-day thing. Obviously, if we find out something with like the X-ray and stuff, that changes things. But as far as like how it looks right now, it seems like it's gonna be one of those things where they're gonna wait out the 3 days. He doesn't play tomorrow, and then see how he feels at the end there before the Bucks game. So it would be obviously really unfortunate for that if they just lost him for that game and going forward. Other than that, the other thing I wanted to point out about this game just very much confirms the eye test and kind of the roster deficiencies with the injury report, right? With Tyler and Duncan being out. The Heat shot 16 of 51 on jump shots tonight. So anything, including anything in the mid-range and from three, 16 of 51 combined. And it's really, really rough. It's bad, right? That's solid analysis there. I think that's a bad percentage. What they did do pretty well, relative to what they usually do is, put up shots at the rim. They got up 26 at the rim tonight. That's a little bit more than they usually get up, so that's cool. I wish they would have finished a little better. They finished at 69% at the rim. Pretty nice. Not too bad, not too great. But as far as the jump shots, you gotta hope it's a Tyler and Duncan thing, man. And I think you gotta hope that Tyler comes back soon if Jimmy's gonna be hobbled. Like, it's really hard not to just come back to that, because look, like, I know Kyle Lowry plays really well when they're missing multiple like best players, but it's not something to bank on game after game. So hopefully Tyler comes back soon. Hopefully the Jimmy ankle thing is not too bad. And hopefully Caleb can get going sometime soon, man. They're gonna need him to get back to playing like Caleb Martin. I don't want to deal with a bunch of these ugly offensive games going forward if guys are going to be super hobbled. But yeah.
Yeah, the offense down the stretch was not fun. We'll see what they look like in Brooklyn. I have a feeling it's going to be a skeleton crew, but sometimes those games can tell us a lot about guys. I imagine Jaime Jaquez will be featured.
Taking the over on Bam.
Yeah, if Bam plays, take the overs on Bam. I would expect.
He loves playing the Nets.
And obviously, I also think Jaquez will get a lot of run in that game. But who knows? Maybe they'll go for that game. I get the sense just by what Ethan was communicating, and he's on the road there in New York. So he'll be also at the game tomorrow night in Brooklyn covering live. Maybe that's what's going on when we're talking about fourth quarter struggles. But he kind of sounded like they were going for this one, but they may hang back a little bit against Brooklyn. So we'll see there. Alex, Brady, thank you for joining me. 5 on the floor post game. Another edition is done. We'll have you covered for Heat Nets tomorrow night. Good night.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.